House of Seekers, Episode 1, The Modern Family Crisis. We're diving deep into a topic that's fundamental to society, family.
Yeah, it's a complex landscape out there. You see, for generations, the family unit has operated a certain way with specific roles and dynamics. But lately, there's been a shift.
Right.
What were once seen as fundamental truths about men, women, and their roles within the family are being questioned.
And we're seeing some pretty alarming statistics about family breakdown, mental health, and societal instability, too.
It makes you wonder, have we veered too far from what works?
That's what we're here to unpack today. Now, let's set the stage. Imagine a typical family, 7:30 a.m. Both parents are rushing around, the kids are caught in the middle, and there's this underlying tension, a sense that something's just off.
Yeah, and it's not just the usual morning chaos. This is a family struggling with blurred lines and unclear roles. The kids are getting mixed messages, and nobody seems to know who's steering the ship.
And what really struck me is this idea that a lot of this stems from rejecting what's called natural order in the family. What does that even mean?
Well, for centuries, across cultures, there's been this understanding of the inherent differences between men and women, not just physically, but emotionally, psychologically. These differences, this natural order, play a key role in shaping family structures.
But today, that idea of inherent differences is often dismissed, right?
Exactly. The prevailing narrative is that gender is a social construct, that we're all blank slates. But what if we're not? What if those inherent differences aren't something to be erased, but rather the very blueprint for a functioning family?
Because you're saying that when we deny that blueprint, it has consequences.
Absolutely. Without that natural order, roles become confused, expectations blur, and families start to unravel, and the effects on children are especially concerning.
Yeah, when we were going through the material, those statistics about how this impacts kids were really alarming. Like that 67% increase in daily family conflicts.
It's not just about the number of arguments, it's about the nature of those conflicts. We're talking power struggles, disrespect for parents, and a fundamental breakdown in the parent-child hierarchy.
And this isn't just a phase kids go through, right?
Right. These early experiences in a chaotic home can have lasting effects on a child's emotional development, their ability to form healthy relationships, and their overall well-being.
It's like that saying, hurt people hurt people.
hmm
If you don't have a model for a healthy, stable family, how can you create one yourself?
It's a vicious cycle. We see the consequences of this breakdown everywhere. In rising crime rates, in the decline of communities. When families fracture, society fractures.
It's like that old saying, as the family goes, so goes the nation.
Exactly. So let's talk about how these shifts have impacted mothers.
Okay, because this is something I've heard debated a lot. This idea that encouraging women to be more like men in the workplace has actually backfired.
And that it's hurt both women and their families. Because while we celebrate women breaking glass ceilings, we often overlook the sacrifices they're making to do so, often sacrificing the very essence of motherhood.
You're saying that deep down, it goes against a woman's natural instincts.
Imagine the pressure of trying to be everything to everyone. The perfect employee, the perfect mother, the perfect partner. It's a recipe for burnout.
And it creates this impossible situation where mothers are made to feel guilty if they prioritize their careers and guilty if they prioritize their families.
It's a no-win situation, and often what's sacrificed are those crucial early years, the emotional bonding, the nurturing environment that only a mother can truly provide.
It's heartbreaking to think about all the mothers who are struggling with this, feeling like they have to choose between their careers and their families.
And what about the fathers? They're often overlooked in this conversation, but their role is just as crucial.
Right? It feels like there's this message that men need to apologize for their masculinity, that their natural instincts are somehow wrong or even dangerous.
Exactly. We hear terms like toxic masculinity thrown around, but what we're really doing is stripping men of their inherent role as protectors and leaders within the family.
And that creates a void, right? If a father doesn't feel respected or valued for his masculine strengths, how can he confidently guide and protect his family?
Exactly. And what message does that send to his children, particularly his sons, who need a strong male role model to guide them into manhood?
It's like we're raising a generation of boys who are unsure of who they are and what it means to be a man. And for daughters, not having that strong father figure can make it difficult for them to form healthy relationships with men later in life.
It's a recipe for disaster on societal level. And what's even more concerning is that this isn't just a one-generation problem. We're seeing a generational crisis unfold.
So our grandparents had a clear understanding of their roles, but then our parents were told those roles were outdated. Now our generation is caught in the middle trying to figure it all out without a clear map.
Precisely. And our children are inheriting that confusion and uncertainty. They're left to navigate a world where the very definition of family is constantly changing, where their parents are unsure of their own roles. Is it any wonder we're seeing such a rise in anxiety and depression among young people?
Okay, so we painted a pretty bleak picture so far, but before we get into potential solutions, I have to ask, are we just clinging to outdated traditions?
Hmm.
What about those who say these natural roles are just a way to control people, especially women?
It's a common criticism,
Ah.
but we need to ask ourselves if these roles are so oppressive, why have they endured for millennia across such diverse cultures? Could it be that they actually reflect something true about human nature? About the complementary strengths that men and women bring to the family unit? It does make you think, doesn't
It
it?
really does. It's like, are we working against our own nature?
And here's where things get really interesting.
Okay, I am intrigued. Tell me more.
This whole discussion about natural order ties into a bigger concept. Some call it created nature.
Created nature.
Yeah, it suggests that we didn't design ourselves or our inherent inclinations.
It's like we were handed a set of blueprints, not a blank slate, like you were saying.
Exactly. Imagine trying to build a house while ignoring the laws of physics. You might get a few floors up before reality sets in.
And in this case, the reality is that denying those natural differences between men and women leads to a lot of the problems we're seeing in families today, right?
You got it. You get fathers who feel lost, mothers who feel inadequate, and children who are caught in the middle without clear guidance.
And the thing is, it's not about saying one set of qualities is better than the other.
No, not at all.
All right.
It's about recognizing that men and women bring different but equally important gifts to the family unit. When we honor those gifts, we create a powerful synergy.
Okay, so it's about recognizing and valuing those differences. So what are some of those specific strengths that we're talking about?
Well, men, for example, are naturally wired to protect, to provide, to lead. Historically, these qualities were essential for keeping families safe and secure.
And women, what are their inherent strengths?
Women have this incredible capacity for nurturing, for creating a warm and loving home environment, for understanding and responding to their children's emotional needs.
And when we try to erase those differences or pretend they don't matter,
Ugh.
we actually do ourselves a disservice.
Exactly. We limit our potential, we create unnecessary conflict, and we miss out on the unique strengths that come from embracing those inherent differences.
And ultimately, it's the children who suffer the most.
Absolutely. They're the ones who are left to navigate a world where the rules are constantly changing, where their parents are unsure of their own roles.
It's no wonder so many young people are struggling with anxiety, depression, and a sense of not belonging.
They've been robbed of the stability and security that comes from having a clear understanding of who they are and where they fit in the world.
It's like trying to assemble a complex piece of furniture without the instruction manual.
Yeah,
Frustrating, confusing, and ultimately unsustainable.
precisely. And speaking of unsustainable, let's talk about what happens when those natural roles get blurred in marriage. We see a spike in divorce rates, and often the root cause is this very issue.
So how does this play out in real-life situations?
Well, take arguments about money, for example. Often it's not really about the money itself, but about the underlying roles and expectations.
Like who's responsible for earning it, who manages it, who makes the decisions?
Exactly. Or think about disagreements over discipline. When those parental roles aren't clearly defined, it creates a breeding ground for resentment and power struggles.
And that's when couples start to drift apart, communication breaks down, and they start to question the whole foundation of their marriage.
Which is tragic because so many of these divorces could have been prevented if couples had a better understanding of their natural roles, their strengths, and how to work together as a team.
Yeah, it makes you wonder if we've overcomplicated marriage.
Perhaps we have. Maybe instead of trying to reinvent the wheel, we should revisit what has worked for centuries. A model where men and women understand and embrace their natural roles, support each other in fulfilling those roles, and raise their children together, united in purpose and love.
That sounds pretty idealistic. Is it really possible to go back to that kind of traditional family structure in today's world?
It's not about going back, it's about moving forward with a deeper understanding of what truly makes families thrive.
So not rejecting modernity, but integrating those traditional values and principles into a modern context.
Exactly. Imagine a future where families are strong, children feel loved and secure, and society as a whole benefits from the stability and prosperity that stem from healthy families.
That's a beautiful vision, and I think a lot of people resonate with that deep down.
Hmm.
But how do we get there? How do we bridge the gap between this idealized version of the traditional family and the very real challenges that families are facing today?
It's the million-dollar question, isn't it? The answer, as with most things worth pursuing, is complex and multifaceted. But there are concrete steps we can take.
So where do we even begin?
One practical approach is outlined in this idea of a family system that works. It's based on timeless principles, proven effective across cultures for centuries.
A family system that works. It sounds promising. Break it down for us.
At its core, it re-emphasizes the father's role as the family's protector and provider. He shields his family from external threats and ensures their well-being.
Which, in today's world, might look different than it did in the past, right?
Exactly. It's not just about physical strength or a paycheck. It's about being a source of stability, guidance, and moral leadership in a world that often feels chaotic and uncertain.
Creating a safe haven for the family, physically and emotionally.
Precisely. And within that safe haven, the mother's role as the heart of the home becomes even more crucial. Nurturing, managing the family's resources, creating that sense of warmth and belonging that every child needs to thrive. It's an incredibly important role.
And it's not about confining women to the home or diminishing their contributions. It's about recognizing and honoring their unique strengths, giving them the authority and respect they deserve within their domain.
You got it. It's about empowering mothers to create that sanctuary where children feel safe, loved, and valued for who they are.
It sounds like a partnership, a team effort, where both parents understand and appreciate their roles and work together towards a common goal.
Precisely. Recognizing that men and women have different but equally important roles to play in building a strong, healthy family. And when those roles are in balance, when they complement each other instead of competing, it creates an environment where everyone thrives.
An environment where children can grow up feeling loved, secure, and prepared to create strong, loving families of their own one day.
Absolutely. Now, I know what you're thinking. How does all of this actually play out in real life?
Yeah, it's one thing to talk about these principles, but putting them into practice in our busy, chaotic lives is a whole other challenge.
You're right. It takes effort, but the rewards are worth it. And there are practical steps we can take. Let's start with the idea of a clear power structure within the family. Well, when we talk about power structure, we're not talking about a dictatorship in the home.
Right, of course not.
Think of it more like a well-run organization.
Okay.
You need someone to provide directions, set the tone.
Right.
That's where the father's natural leadership comes in.
Okay, so it's about having clear roles and expectations.
Exactly.
But that doesn't mean the mother is powerless.
Absolutely not. Think of it this way. The father might be the CEO, setting the overall vision.
Okay.
But the mother is the COO, the heart of the home,
Right.
making sure everything runs smoothly on a day-to-day basis.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
So the father's role is more about leadership and guidance,
Yeah,
and the mother's is about nurturing and managing the home.
exactly. And it's about those roles working in harmony. The father can't lead effectively if the home front is in disarray, and the mother can't create a haven of peace and stability if the family is constantly under threat from external forces.
So how do we ensure that harmony? What are some practical tips?
Communication is key.
Communication, right?
This is something else that's highlighted, the importance of parents presenting a united front.
That makes sense.
You know,
Yeah.
kids are perceptive.
Yeah.
They can sense discord between their parents from a mile away.
Oh, absolutely.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
they'll exploit it every time.
Of course.
But when children see their parents as a team, respecting each other's authority, united in their love and guidance,
Right.
it creates an incredible sense of security.
It's like that foundation, that bedrock that they can always rely on.
Precisely.
Yeah.
That kind of security is crucial for children's development.
Right.
They can relax, be themselves, explore the world without fear because they know their parents have their back.
Okay, so we've covered the principles, the importance of defined roles of
Yeah.
communication.
Right.
What about the actual practical application of this family system?
Yeah.
How do we make it work in our busy modern lives?
It does take effort,
Sure.
but there are simple, practical steps you can take.
Okay.
For example, something as basic as prioritizing shared meals as a family can be incredibly impactful.
Family dinner.
Yes.
The holy grail of modern parenting. But in reality, it's often more like a chaotic free-for-all.
It can be a challenge, for sure.
Yeah.
But even 15 minutes of dedicated family time without distractions
Right.
can make a world of difference.
It's about creating that space for connection, for sharing stories, for laughter.
Exactly. And for parents, it's an opportunity to model healthy communication, conflict resolution, even just basic table manners.
Right. And it can be a way to reclaim those lost traditions, too.
Absolutely.
Create your own family rituals, even if there's something small.
Exactly. Maybe it's a no phones at the table rule, or everyone takes turns sharing the best part of their day. It's about being intentional, creating those moments of connection, those shared experiences that become part of your family's story.
When we step back and look at this family system, this idea of defined roles, of clear communication, of intentional living, it does feel a bit countercultural.
Yeah,
Like we're swimming against the tide of what's considered modern or progressive.
it does.
Right.
It does require courage to go against the grain, to prioritize family above all else. But that courage is rooted in something much deeper than just following the crowd.
Right.
It comes from recognizing that we were created for something more,
Right.
that our families are a reflection of a divine design.
And that when we align our lives with that design, when we embrace those natural roles and rhythms, we tap into a power and wisdom that's far greater than our own.
It is.
That's a lot to consider.
It really is.
Well, this has been an incredible conversation, a real deep dive into the complexities of modern family life.
It has.
Thank you so much for joining us and sharing these insights.
It's been my pleasure.
And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
Yeah, thank
We
you.
hope this conversation has given you much to think about
Yes,
and perhaps even inspired you to take action in your own families.
that's right.
Until next time, keep seeking truth.
And keep the conversation going.